Pet Behaviour Odysseys, Episode 7, Support for Change.
Hello and welcome back to episode 7 of our 8-part series, Pet Behaviour Odysseys. Yes, the Odyssey is nearly over. My name is Daniel Mills and I'm Professor of Veterinary Behavioural Medicine at the University of Lincoln. And together with my co-host and colleague at the Animal Behaviour Clinic at the university, we've been exploring the journey of Drax and his owners, Becky and Craig. Welcome back.
Hello.
In this series, we've been exploring the experience of having a problem pet, focusing especially on the client's experience. In the last episode, we talked about some of the interventions we initially recommended to Drax to help Drax and why we did that. This week, we're going to explore the important process of keeping clients motivated during the process of change, what we sometimes refer to as the maintenance phase of behaviour change. You can hear all about that in episode 2, where we talk about what's known as the cycle of change. Now, we should preface this episode on helping clients maintain their efforts by saying, in Becky and Craig, we have very highly motivated clients. This is not always the case. So, I wouldn't say you're the exception rather than the rule, but because a lot of people, they're very, very dedicated. But as I said, you are really, quite exceptional in your motivation. And we should perhaps say, after the consultation, you've been one of the driving forces for this whole series as well. That, the conversations that we had as Drax improved, we thought, well, there's a real opportunity here. And you said, if we can help others, we'd really like to. And then Millie and I thought, okay, let's take them up on that. So we came up with the idea of this series. So anyway.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add to that, sort of talking about, obviously, Becky and Craig, very motivated, and in that sense, there's the battle won before we even begin. Kind of appreciating the reasons that someone might lack motivation is a really key feature of the work that we do, and it's often not what you might assume. So it can be easy to think someone just not giving the time, or they're being lazy, things that they're just not doing what you've asked, but actually figuring the underlying issue out as much as we do that for the assessment of a dog or a cat is really important in understanding what might be holding someone back from implementing things and feeling motivated to do that. So, as ever, really important not to prejudge anyone or fall into what we call confirmation bias. So just having an idea and confirming it through gathering evidence for your idea, and instead really listening to and understanding the client's struggles and working with them to find a realistic and achievable way forward. And as ever, being prepared to adapt to changing circumstances. So, as we said, you were very highly committed as owners, but we know it wasn't always easy for you to do, what we hoped could happen. So perhaps we should start by asking what you felt you needed most to help you keep going when you started implementing the changes we suggested. Perhaps both, if you can remember sort of at the time what you felt you needed to keep going, and then also kind of looking back what was helpful at that time.
Well, thank you for those lovely words. I think you describe us as being motivated, but at that time, it definitely wasn't motivation that we had. So I think motivation is the number one thing that I needed personally to keep going, because I was just drained emotionally, physically.
You had commitment that you were drained, yeah.
Yeah, I think I always had commitment to Drax because he's my dog. So I was always going to be committed to him. But yeah, the motivation was there. And hope was a massive thing. And I don't think it was until quite later on in the programme that I actually... Well, I got little drips of hope through little things that we saw and light bulb moments. But it was hard to see the end of that journey and any sort of hope that we would ever get out of this situation. So motivation and hope for me was a massive thing. What about you?
I think the support of you guys as well. Like I say, we'd gone through behaviorists, people, trainers, people who had told us that they knew what they needed, they knew what was needed and what the outcome would be, but we weren't seeing it. And then from your perspective, the support that you gave, with the sessions that we did, and then actually seeing the positive steps that we hadn't seen with the other trainers. So I think it was a massive help to have you guys not saying doing the same things, but it's really hard to explain. But
It's something new, wasn't it?
Listening to you and being prepared to adapt our plans. How about that?
yes,
Yeah. 'Cause I think that's
I'm not a wordsmith today.
it's all right. I know you're not feeling 100% today, Craig, so thank you for sticking with us on tonight. So, yeah, and I think that is a key thing, that clients need to know that they're being heard. In fact, I've got I know one colleague in this field, his first consultation is purely that. It's purely, he asks the client, I want you to tell me everything. I'm not going to give you any advice. I just want to listen to you in that first consultation. I think that's quite an interesting approach, because people come with so much baggage, for whatever reason, the stress of it. And that's what this whole series is about. So I think it's important that people know that they're heard. And also, as you've said, and we've sort of hinted at in other episodes, that as clinicians, we adapt our approach according to the client and according to the feedback we get from the dog as well as the client. If things aren't progressing quite as we'd like, then we need to understand why, not think, oh, they just need to try harder, which I know you do sometimes hear those horror stories.
Yeah, but sorry, just on the back of that, Daniel, that is exactly what it felt like when I first came to see you. You just asked me to tell you what has been happening, and I think at that moment I burst into tears. So probably at that point I needed therapy as well than anything. So, but that comes with being heard and being listened to, and someone actually generally seeing things from your perspective and not thinking that you're just being dramatic, or it's not as hard as you think, or you're doing it wrong. It was very much listening, and as I have said previously, it was probably more behaviour management and therapy for me as opposed to Drax. That's the human side of it as well, isn't it? So yeah, that's really important as well.
But we do need to listen to you to understand as well. We can't help Drax if we can't understand the situation you're in, because as I said in the last episode, that if you offer advice that it's not practical, it's worthless. So that's why you have to listen. I'm not a therapist for humans.
Definitely happened for me.
But I'm very pleased to hear that you found it useful from that point of view. But I'm not just listening to your problems. I'm actually understanding the whole situation so that we can make the best recommendations that we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along those same lines, and sort of what you're alluding to there, Becky, a little bit, is sometimes, I suppose, the work that we do obviously is with animals, and as we've said in previous episodes, a lot of that is also to do with the human component, the person living with those animals. A lot of it can be, you learn more about animal behaviour and how things fit together, and it does help you to understand your own behaviour or the behaviour of other people that a bit better. I know that's something personally I have found in my journey through things. So I really, I appreciate that. And this is something, I certainly have some thoughts on, but I'd be interested to see what you think. When did you feel you sort of needed the most help from us, or the most support from us throughout the follow-up that you had with us?
Oh, so just trying to think. There was quite a lot of times. It was usually when things weren't going the way that I had hoped they went. So usually when there was a regression in Drax's behaviour, which is we've experienced numerous times before, because usually when there's a regression, it takes so much to get to the point where we'd got to, or not at all, and then I just give up. So yeah, I remember sending quite a few emotional emails to you, Millie, just in bits around what's happened or what's not happened, and this has happened. So yeah, that email or that phone call support when things weren't going great, because they have been going so great, and then some things happened for whatever reason. Sometimes there wasn't a reason, it just happened because that's part of behaviour. Yeah, I feel like that's when I needed the most support from you.
But I just want to jump in at this point because, first of all, I really appreciate your honesty, and you can tell. I think listeners can tell even from your voice that there's still it's tough at times. But also, I think there's a really important lesson there for anybody who is working with clients with problem behaviour, because again, I think I hear this too often for my own comfort that the clinician seems to think that the only time the client needs help is to set everything up and then they can run with it. And anything that goes wrong after that is the client's fault because they're not implementing. And that's actually not when clients need most help. They need the understanding, they need everything set up, but they really need help in that, as I say, what we call that maintenance phase. They're starting to change the behaviors. And they need to keep the motivation going. And they will have setbacks and they will make mistakes. Again, as we've said previously, we make mistakes. Dogs are forgetting. It's not the end of the world. And I often say this to clients, when it comes to talking about treatment, is you'll make mistakes. It's okay. And you watch them physically relax at that point in the consultation, because they're scared of making mistakes, and that's one of the things that holds them back from even trying things, because what are going to be the consequences? So and I hope people that are listening to this, that are working in the field, that they really remember that, because that was a very impassioned, I think, demonstration from what you just told us. And I really appreciate you saying, because it's not an easy thing to say, that actually it's tough. It's really tough at times. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is the honest, it is utterly miserable at times working through behavioural challenges, and it isn't all progress and happy times. There are some real lows in the process, as I'm sure a lot of listeners, if they've come here, may have experienced as well. And I think one of the sort of times I was thinking of from my memory with things was where we still had this situation of having to take Drax out with you to certain places where we couldn't leave him behind. So there was family events and taking him to the pub and things that, were still very challenging to manage. And I think we kind of reached a point where we said, right, let's prioritize getting him able to stay at home so that you can go out and do these things, and he can, have he may not love being left at home, but it's better than going to the pub for him. So let's work towards that. Do you remember that kind of point in the process?
Oh, just absolutely remember. Again, it's this trauma that you're bringing back.
We're only been to bring up a lady trauma.
But yeah, at the pub incident, we went out for your brother's birthday, and it was one of those where we've tried to explain to people we can't just come to the pub because we haven't got anyone for the dog, because my dad couldn't have him. Usually go to my dad's. It was a Sunday. But we can't just leave him at home. Oh, just bring the dog, just bring him. And people just don't understand, and it's just we're getting sort of obviously meant to feel a little bit bad that we couldn't go out for your brother's birthday, understandably, because we really wanted to and didn't want to miss it. But we ended up having to bring Drax, and it was the most stressful situation ever, right from the get-go. As soon as Drax saw your brother, rah, 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 we went in the pub. It was just barking at everyone. We went and sat outside. It was barking at anyone who came near it. It barked at the waiter when they brought the food over. They nearly spilled the food everywhere. And then as soon as his brother came anywhere near us, it was blah, blah, blah. It was honestly one of the most stressful times that we've ever had with him, wasn't it? And then after that, we just came home, and I think I cried. You were just sat staring into vacant space, like what has just, when you just had so much adrenaline, and then it just all goes. And obviously, Paul Drex were just hyper, and he was everywhere. And my daughter was with us as well, and she was like, "What is going on here? I just want to eat my jacket potato and pig." So I think we stayed for about half an hour.
Yeah, we were. I think we literally waited until the food came, and then quickly
left,
and then we left.
Oh, it was just awful. Yeah, and I remember messaging you straight after that. Like, oh no, what is this?
Yeah. I think, although didn't mean to breed the trauma for you, but for me,
it's over now. We just go, loving people.
Remembering that time, as I said, kind of looking back with hindsight, to me as the person sort of supporting you at that time was really key, where we were able to sort of really go, we need to prioritize him being able to stay at home so that you can go out and do these things, both with family and as Maeve was starting to grow up, as you mentioned earlier. And that I think was quite a shift in our focus, where we'd kind of been, oh, there's the walks, there's the people, there's the dogs, there's the separation, and it gave quite a clear, this is what we need to do.
But to me, I really, it's really nice in a way for me to hear this, because as I mentioned in a previous episode, clinicians are often in this very powerful position, and clients often feel very inhibited about being able to talk about these issues, because of they're in the clinician or trainer is in that authority position, and that can really be a barrier to good dialogue. So the fact that you felt you could just bang out that email to us, that's actually really important. And it wasn't an email that said, oh, things are, we just had a disaster and it's all your fault. You weren't blaming or whatever. It was just that sort of, okay, we've just had a disaster and I need your support. And that's what, that's such an important part of that whole process. It's like, as I said, rather than just saying, oh, well, they're that authority figure and I've got to do what they say, it's important to have, to be able to have dialogue, I think, together. And that's so important.
And I think I'll just make a comment, because I'm sure we'll have other professionals working in the field potentially listening in as well. That on the flip side of that, when you do receive that email or that call or whatever it might be, again, it can be easy to kind of immediately blame yourself or start thinking, what have I failed to do, or what have I not provided? And it's, it can be that knee-jerk reaction. But if you kind of get into that cycle of thinking, one, you're not going to help the client, and two, you're not going to help yourself, because it's really, it's going to get you down. It's a hard thing to learn to do, and it's something I'm very grateful to have the team around me at Lincoln that I do, and have a community in that sense. But it's a process for both of you, and you've got to work through those things together, when it goes wrong, when it goes right. And avoid this feeling of blame, and know that you're there for a common goal to improve things, and it's not always going to be straightforward, but as long as you can provide that support and work through things together, then
But I think that's the key thing, is that clients are going to get frustrated on that journey, absolutely, because they're not getting the expectations, and we're all impatient for change and for things to be better. But to, rather than look to blame, to actually just sort of recognize that you need help, and to work with us in that situation. And that, that I think is the key. And that not all clients find that easy. You did, and we're fortunate that we could provide you with the support. For other clients, they, whatever reason, they may feel a little bit more distant, and it's really tough for them as a result. And we don't know the life that our clients have led as well. We understand as best we can their current situation, but everybody's going to react to situations in a different way. And again, I think we mentioned in the last episode about not prejudging, and it's so important. Again, if you go on the sort of discussion forums, too often you hear trainers and behaviourists sort of saying, oh, it's so annoying the clients aren't doing this. Why aren't they doing this? And I think probably because you're not giving them the time, or you've not got the dialogue with them to understand what's holding them back.
Yeah, and I think, I presume, and maybe this will be one to ask Craig as well, because I know we weren't as in direct contact. But how did you feel about contacting us for help when it was needed, or did you feel, that the sorts of things you could reach out for?
It's really weird, because I would just focus on Becky. So I would tell Becky, and she wouldn't require a lot of persuasion to put an email. I think I was a little bit more calmer and a bit more relaxed. Not in the super stressful situations of going to the pub and things, but I think I was probably a bit more relaxed on when he wasn't doing as well on certain occasions. I think Becky had my perception was that Becky had a need for things to be progressed much quicker. But then there were times where I would say surely things should have changed by now. And I would say, look, next time you link in, it might be worth asking the question. So we would have conversations quite regularly.
Yeah, yours were more like you wanted more practical, like feedback. Mine was very much emotionally driven, wasn't it? I needed that emotional support. I was writing that email to you literally on the way home from the pub in the car. I'm very responsive and reactive on my emotions.
I think I was a little bit more mellow, so I think I knew that obviously contact needed to be made to obviously say this is what's happened, but I wasn't in the need to like do it right now.
Becky was very reactive.
Like, I need to do it right now.
But I would say you contacted us, yes, but you didn't deluge us with emails. You know, when you contacted us, there was a purpose for it. You know, it wasn't just therapy for yourself.
There
was a real reason behind it. So you know, and as I said, there's a difference between, you know, we do get clients who just bombard us with emails and we're thinking there's no actual information or no request here. Whereas in your case, you know, there was always a reason behind it and an action for us to do as a result.
Yeah. It was usually if I had a question, just to clarify the process to make, because I needed that constant affirmation that I was doing it right. So I knew it would work, but it was more emotional.
We worked well together as well on the advice that had been given. We were able to kind of bounce off one another and have, I don't want to say professional conversation, but it felt like a real conversation about what's working, what's potentially not going to work.
Reflection.
Yeah, before then needing to get into it.
That's a really important part of that whole process of maintenance, that you're starting to problem solve, and you're having these conversations as part of that journey, because you've started to get the skills, you know what needs to happen. You may not know it all, and you can come to us, of course, but if you can have the conversations yourself, and this is the good thing about any team, they cover each other's blind spots. I'm struggling with this. Why is this? You know, and I might have a question and I come down to the clinic and I've got some great colleagues there and I can chat about it and I get their perspective and I think, okay, I understand this now, you know. And if you've got each other in that sort of role, then I think that's again a really important part of that maintenance phase of bringing about the change. We're trying to make people, you know, we're trying to improve their confidence, but we're trying to also make them problem solvers, because we're not going to address every single issue for you, because as you go through your journey with Drax throughout his life, you are going to have challenges. But as a result of the consultation with us, you've learned more about dogs in general, but you've learned about Drax and you've learned about some of the issues and where things, how to go about solving problems. And you know, that's again a really important part of the whole process, which isn't taught in the training manuals, you know, because they're all about this is what you do. So again, I think that's what's important about this this whole series. I'm just intrigued to know from each of you when you really felt that you were starting to make progress. Was there one event for either of you, maybe the same one, it may be different, and you thought, yeah, actually, things are going forward now?
Have you got one?
Long pause silence at this point.
I'm just reflecting on everything.
I can't remember where we went, but I remember just being able to get in the car and go. We went somewhere.
I think we went shopping, and I was just glued to my phone the whole time watching Drax on the camera, and he was fine.
But it was, yeah, I mean, it probably was that actually, to be fair, because I do remember you commenting on, he's on the sofa, he's off the sofa, he's on the sofa.
Yeah, I got a bit upset at a point, and then Millie had to cut me off. I stopped looking at it.
I did, well, I told you to put it down as well. Yeah, no, I think it was something again that seems so trivial, just going out and doing an errand, but I do remember just, we went out of the back door, which was part of what we'd been doing for his training. We got in the car. We knew that obviously the engine on was one of his triggers because he could hear the car. He knew that meant that we were going away. And then I just remember just driving, and I think we drove into town, and then I think we went to the supermarket. Maybe had a coffee or something.
We went to the supermarket. I don't think we had a coffee that time because that had been too long. But we went and did some shopping, and then come straight back.
But I remember, like, when we came back as well, it was a case of we came back and we waited till we were at a time where we were settled to come back in.
Oh yeah, that was really important. Actually, waiting until he's calm to come in.
And then when we came in, and I mean, he's always been like a puppy when we come home. He's always super excited when we come home. But yeah, I think. I can't say exactly when it was, but I know it was just a trivial thing that actually felt like a massive thing.
Oh, there was so many times for me that, again, it was just like, to people who haven't been in this position, sound really trivial, but I think taking Drax in the car, so we were working on getting him settled in the car as well. And I think I took him to the shop. Oh, it was a new place that I'd never been before, so that was part of it. Let's try a different place, because obviously he's built up association with certain places, which makes his behaviour more heightened. So I took him to the shop round the corner, and he'd never been there before. And I got out of the car, and I used to have my phone propped up so I could sort of watch him. Or I had two phones, I can't remember. It was very technical. So I had two phones, watching him on one of the other phones, and it was just really calm, and they didn't make a bark or anything. And I think I remember telling you about that, Millie, that it just not made a sound at all. So there was that, and then, as Craig said, actually being able to go out and him not settling, because he never settled, but there was one time where he got on the sofa and he sat down for a millisecond, and then he jumped back off. And I remember just ringing Millie or emailing her saying, "It's just sat on the sofa." It was calm for like a second. And because he'd just be pacing all the time, licking and just pacing from one. And he just got on the sofa. I mean, now whenever we go out, he lays on the sofa and he goes to sleep. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Sofa now when we're out.
But looking back like that, just sitting and showing a little tiny bit that he was relaxed in his own home, that was a massive, oh my goodness, that is incredible. There were so many more, but yeah, those tiny little glimpses of hope. Stella mentioned hope was one thing that I needed. That's what was spurring me on to sort of keep going.
I think there's two really important things that you say there. First of all, the first time you felt you were making progress was something that you wouldn't have seen as part of the problem. It was you say, it's almost something that seemed trivial. And that's the first thing I think for people to appreciate, that actually, progress comes in many forms. And whilst ultimately, we're addressing the problem behavior, that, we should celebrate those successes. And that brings me to the second point, which is, and hearing you say there were so many. And again, that's what's really important when we're trying to maintain behavior, that you celebrate and, emotionally you think, yes, because that's what keeps you going through that time, is seeing, so we do need to celebrate those successes. We don't have to do high fives and whoop and whatever, but we do need to stop and take note to say, yes, we've made progress today. Things are going in the right direction. Because if you don't do that, then there is a great danger that the program starts to fade. And again, there's a danger for some clients, they focus only on that end goal. And one of the reasons for this series also being separation problems, we know it's something that often it's a long journey. But it illustrates so well that importance of keeping people going and making sure that they remain they remain motivated. And to do that, as I said, you've got to celebrate the steps up, not just getting to the top of the platform at the end of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I can remember a lot of those times where you would email me with a picture of Drax sat on the sofa, and then I'd email Daniel and say, look at Drax sat on the sofa. And, we shared the successes with you in that way. And yeah, I mean, I know you've mentioned this before, but kind of being able to share that moment, I suppose, with someone that's equally been quite invested in the plan.
Well, it's reinforcing for us too. We like it when we get those pictures and those videos from clients of their steps forward, because it can be tough for us as well. Sometimes you get those cases, you see the client and you sort of think you've set things up, and then you get radio silence and you think, well, how are they getting on? And there's always that angst without the information as to are they coping or not. Sometimes they contact you and say, look at this, brilliant, and they've really cracked it. But at other times you just wish sort of, well, just tell us a little bit, let's help you, let's provide that reinforcement for maintaining the behaviors and getting to the goal.
Yeah. Do you and either of you think you can remember anything else, or sort of sources of reinforcement that you would use for yourselves, other than potentially Becky emailing me and saying, look what you've done, fantastic? Sort of ways you'd celebrate those successes. Obviously, I suppose from what Craig said, part of that is just being able to go out and do things.
Yeah.
Wine.
Excellent, yeah.
It's a little celebratory Friday night trees, and if there'd been good days, we'd get a bottle of wine.
It was just so much more relaxing. Yeah.
But that's it. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't have to be high-fiving, whooping and dancing in the street. It's having, let's open a bottle of wine. But by doing that, you're also marking the occasion as well. So you're making it that much more of a conscious process. And again, that all helps in that sticking with the plan.
And I think now kind of thinking more towards where we were, making progress and feeling we're going in the right direction and feeling a bit more confident, starting to go out, these sorts of things. Can you remember, and Daniel mentioned earlier, sort of problem solving and starting to, have those conversations between yourselves, and yes, potentially checking the details with us to get that clarification. But any situation sort of as you were getting to that point of potentially coming to the end of your support with us, where you were starting to maybe do some of that problem solving yourselves a bit more?
So specific things you managed to solve, even if you checked in with us to just be reassured that was the right thing, that you thought, actually, we think we know what we need to do now. We've not been told that this is the answer, but we've managed to do it.
I think with a lot of them, if we were having to go out for sort of a long period of time, and it was a period of time that we'd not left him before, I would always check in with you, Millie, just to make you aware and just say, should I be doing anything different? Is this going to be okay? Is there a chance that it could potentially tip him over the edge, or how do I manage it? And it was just that it's new situations, I suppose, that we hadn't been to before, or new people's houses. What are some of the tools that we can take with us? Do we need to take additional treats, or is ball, or is a calm mat or something? So it was sort of problem solving through yourselves, but then obviously me and you would make plans as well.
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't we?
I think it's obviously a technique that was part of the process in regarding stage leaving. We still communicate that and how we're going to do that when we're going out for long periods of time. If all three of us are going out and we know that it's going to be a potential stressful situation, because we don't know if we're going to be out for a longer period of time. I mean, we can go out of the house now for like hours, which is almost unheard of, when we couldn't even get out of the house for seconds to start with. But when we know we're going somewhere where we may be out for the full day, and he's going to be on his own, then it may be that Becky will leave with the little one and I will stay in the house just to kind of take the edge off that stressful situation. And then once he's calmed and settled, then I leave, but I'll leave through a different door. So it's Becky will have gone out the front door. I'll sit and stay until he's calm. I'll go out the back door. He knows that ultimately going out the back door is someone's going, they're not going to be coming back for potentially quite a while. But it's not a case of everybody leaving at the same time, which might heighten his frustration of, right, everyone's left me. How long am I going to be left on my own this time?
Yeah. And we still use the tough luck signal, don't we, for that, when it's a long one.
Yeah.
We've never left him more than 6 hours, though. 6 hours is like the max. But we use that one
Put the
on the same door that we've always used for the training, just so that's... Yeah, but you're right.
But it's really weird because when we watch him on the Furbo and we check, it's almost like he doesn't even go into the kitchen to even check that signal anymore. He's either laid on the sofa or he'll have a wander around, but ultimately he'll just get back on the sofa.
Yeah. With the odd bark in between, it sort of it reverts back to old techniques. So he still tests it. Like if I bark and if I pace, then maybe someone will come back. So it's funny how that's still there, but then he'll eventually just give up. Like, all right, this isn't working. I'm just going to sit and chill. So yeah, stuff like that with the exits. If it's going to be for a longer time, we do check in with each other, don't we, and decide how we're going to do it.
Like,
so,
am I going to go first, or are you going to go first?
Yeah.
How long do you want me to leave it? Are you going to get the car running? Do you want me to meet you?
Yeah. So that's sort of just ingrained in us now, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that degree of planning between you and just, yes, like you say, it is still trying to problem solve in order to make it as easy as possible for Drax, in light of the progress that you've made. And then we mentioned towards the end of the last episode, the Furbo, and we hadn't mentioned it again yet. So just to say sort of the use of the Furbo in the process of follow-up. Obviously, we were able there to do sort of live training sessions and all three of us together. So you and Craig at home and me on the Furbo at the other end. And doing those sessions, like you said, having that kind of reassurance of someone is watching the situation and kind of giving that feedback in the moment.
Yeah, and feedback, as you just said there, again, that's something that the Furbo is really good at doing. Again, disclaimer, we don't work for Furbo. But with the Furbo, you can talk through it, and that was one of the things that Drax struggled with, obviously being in the house by himself, and particularly me being away from me. But if he's getting quite stressed when we do leave him, if I talk to him through the Furbo just to say, it's all right, Drax, we'll be back soon, just calm down, it settles him instantly. So it's so good at doing that. And then I can even pre-record my voice when it kicks out of treat to say goodbye or good job. So it's like I'm there, but not. It's a little bit of a safety net for him.
I think, again, one of the things you just gave a lovely example there is it's the way you speak to Drax now, as opposed to, oh, it's okay, Drax, it's not. It's that confident. It's all okay. It's that upbeat voice. And that's what he needs as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So, you've changed the whole way that you interact with him through that device as well.
Yes.
I think as well, Millie, with regards to the Furbo, I think you massively helped Becky.
I was addicted
because of how addicted she was of constantly checking it. When we were a phone call away and we were out and you were monitoring and you were saying that, he's fine, these are the signs. He is looking like, he's a little bit, uncomfortable. Potentially he's not that, but it's manageable. So you don't need to come back. I think having your expertise and being able to view that on behalf of Becky, because I think with Becky watching it, there was the need to come back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that really kind of kicked on with
previous.
Actually, if Millie's saying I don't need to come back now, then maybe I don't need to come back now. And I think that also built the amount of time that we could stay out without having to come back.
Yeah. You had to give me a plan, not a diarised, but a schedule of how long I could leave it before checking the Furbo, because it got checked the camera.
Yeah. So as well as just thinking about the length of time we could leave Drax, as the length of time Becky could not check the camera.
I used to have to tell her off. We'd be in car and she'd be in passenger seat going, I'm just going to have a look at the camera. I'd be like, don't look at the camera.
Put it away.
Put it away.
Yeah. No,
I don't do that anymore, by the way. I don't do it anymore.
It's a weaning process. But I think another key point just there while we're on the topic of the Furbo and watching him was, like you say, kind of the transition from being up and about, that degree of finding it hard, but managing and coping. And I remember kind of the thing we talked about a lot was, as long as we're starting to see less of that and more of the getting on the sofa or more of the starting to settle, we're moving in the right direction. And that is exactly what we saw, is that pattern of that settled behaviour becoming more apparent and more prolonged, and the pacing and being a bit uncomfortable and vocalising a little bit becoming less and less. And like you say, it could still happen because it's a strategy that did work for him really well for a long time. But he's got the skills now to work through that.
So, I mean, eventually there comes the time when you felt that, I'm talking to Millie at this point, that Millie felt that you no longer needed our regular follow-up. And I seem to recall Millie coming to me and saying, Becky wants to buy more follow-up. I don't think she needs it. And I thought, so what do I do? And I said, well, we don't take money just because clients want to give it to us.
Yeah. And yeah, no, that I do remember having that conversation. And I said, I think you wanted the safety net, and ultimately had it, because you could have come back to us and we could have done it. But yeah, you needed a little push off the edge at that point. Yeah. To say, you can do this.
I have an insecure attachment. I couldn't cope with you not being there. It was hard to break away from that.
After chatting to us through all these episodes, you'll be sick of us.
Yeah. But I suppose at the stage when we came to having that conversation, did you feel ready for it?
I must have done, because I eventually agreed to it. Otherwise, I would have continued.
We talked about it, and yeah, she was.
I did want to keep working on the reactivity too. Yeah. I did want to do more practical training around that, but then I thought, you know what? I think I can actually manage this on my own. Yeah. So I was thinking, give myself a break.
Yeah. I just want to become that problem solver, and you can make your own judgments about your priorities, and you've got the freedom to do that rather than being overwhelmed with everything.
Yeah,
we knew that until we pulled the bandage off, it were either going to work or it weren't, and if it were, we could always come back.
Yeah, you were still there. I can email you now occasionally, but good things. So yeah, I know you're always there if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was a key moment, really, knowing that you felt you had the confidence to go off on your own as well. It's not just us saying it.
Yeah, you very much was a sensitive carer to me. You gotta be all right. Come here, off you go. On your own, you're okay. I needed that, because I'm so used to like people telling me like how to do it, and that I need that reassurance that I'm doing that right. I constantly need that reassurance from most things in life, but yeah, especially with this whole process. But I felt quite empowered afterwards, thinking I've never actually got to the stage of a program where I thought, you know what, I think we're going to be all right. I think we've nailed it, and it was actually a really nice closure for me that I'd never had before. So yeah, once I got over the anxiety and that attachment, like, oh, don't leave me on my own. It was actually really, really empowering, and was very proud of everything that we'd done. So yeah, it is nice.
It should be, absolutely. And yeah, again, have perfectly led us on to wrapping this episode up, because in the final episode, which will be episode 8, we'll be looking at your feelings about the future with Drax. So where we're at and what the future looks like, and just reflecting on the things that we've chatted through over the last 7 episodes. But I think that probably brings us to a close for this episode.
Yeah, I think so. And through this, I hope we've managed to convey to the listener a sense of the importance of support for clients as they take action and try to maintain adapted according to the needs. To take actions, clients need skills, they need opportunities, and most of all, they need confidence to act as they see change. And this can be very rewarding, and it's important to celebrate those successes. But change does take time with a lot of these cases, and sometimes the rewards in the form of the dog's behaviour change can seem insufficient. Sometimes it's those little things, as you've mentioned, that they just seem brilliant. But it's important to pause and have a glass of wine, as you say, to celebrate those things, and not just to be totally focused on this sort of end goal, but to focus on the journey that we're on. So I think as clinicians, we have an important role to help clients celebrate their successes. As I said, it helps us as well. It's not always easy. You know, this profession has a high rate of burnout. And I think maybe clients, they could do clinicians a favor by sharing their successes with them more to help them in that process. Because if you don't hear anything, sometimes we worry about these things. But as I say, we're trying to build clients' confidence to become confident problem solvers. And we hope you'll join us next time for the last episode of this series, when we'll be looking back on the journey as well as looking forward. So until then, take care, and it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.
And goodbye from me.
And from our guests, Becky and Craig.
Bye. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed listening, and if you want to make sure you don't miss out on the next episode, don't forget to follow us on whatever platform you use for your podcasts.
We'd also really appreciate you giving us a thumbs up rating and sharing details with others who you think might be interested.
If you are listening on YouTube, you can also leave comments, and we'd love to see your thoughts and suggestions on the episode. You can even go over to YouTube at www.youtube.com/@whatmakesyouklick2323/podcasts and leave a comment on the show, even if you have listened using a different platform. Alternatively, you can leave a message for us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/DSMpod.
And if you think it might be useful to others, don't forget to share the details with them.
Finally, if you have been affected by any of the issues raised in this episode, please remember you're not alone and professional help is available. In the UK, we recommend you consult with a certificated clinical animal behaviourist, and you can find a list of these at www.ccab.uk. You can also find further details of the Lincoln Animal Behaviour Clinic at www.animalbehaviourclinic.lincoln.ac.uk. That's Animal Behaviour Clinic, all one word, .lincoln.ac.uk. In the notes linked to the show, we provide further contact details, including to international groups.
This has been an independent Million Mills production, and so the views expressed by us are our own and not those of the University of Lincoln. Editing was done by Thomas Mills and original music provided by Henry Eady. Thank you for listening, and all the best till next time.